Welcome. For today's class, we'll begin on the back. As we set a blanket out, we'll think of supporting the skull so that the neck can find neutral position. You don't need the blanket, but it really does add needed support. So I'm going to settle down and rest my head on the blanket and take a moment here to run my hands along the back of my neck until I find the occipital bone, and I'll just very gently create length by drawing the occipital bone away from the shoulders. And then settling the skull down and taking a moment to land on the ground. As we begin class today, we'll scan through the body and notice these points of contact with the mat beneath us. So noticing the skull settle, the shoulders settle, the hips settle, even the feet settle into the support of the mat. And we'll be working with this feeling of release into the ground that we'll refer to as yielding. So taking a moment now to fully release throughout the body, crown to toes. You can keep your knees bent in active rest pose, or you can lay your legs flat on the ground and let the ankles settle as well. Maybe laying the arms out to either side. For a moment, releasing any work. Feeling the body settle into the support beneath it, yielding into the ground. Noting the solid foundation beneath us. And then bringing your awareness to your breath as it travels through the body. Not attempting to change anything, but with curiosity, noting what is the quality of my breath today. Noticing where in the body you're most aware of the breath sensations. As the air passes in through the nostrils, travels into the lungs. Can you feel the abdomen rising? And seeing here as we become aware of the breath, if we can release the work of the breath. Release any tension that may be gathering in the throat on the inhale. And soften through the skull, the eyes, the jaw, the mouth. And just let the breath breathe itself. As we give the body permission to settle, just notice in our practice today where we're starting from. Checking if there are any areas of holding in the body, the areas of tension, any areas that feel fluid, relaxed. And as you scan through the body, noticing in the skull if you can feel sensation, any sensation at all, throughout the muscles of the face, even the inside of the mouth, the back of the head, the temples. What do you notice? And traveling through the body in the same way, just observing and asking this relevant question, can I feel this area of the body? If I draw awareness into the throat, can I feel the throat from the inside? Is it accessible to me? Noticing even the areas that feel numb, where there's a lack of access, a lack of awareness, and noticing that too. Just being curious about that, interested. And as you travel your awareness through the body, noticing any sensations that are here, as your awareness enters into each limb, each joint, you can also cue permission to relax, giving each area of the body an opportunity to release work. Let any effort simply release into the ground beneath. And from here, we'll begin to move very slowly. And I'll begin by opening and closing my hands with the rhythm of my breath. And so find what works for you here, but maybe opening the palms with the inhale and slowly closing them with the exhale. And really allowing your awareness to be in the part of the body that's moving. And without trying to change the breath, just letting the movement of the hands be a representation of the movement of breath, in sync with the breath pattern. I'll invite you to add your feet to this movement, maybe curling the toes with the exhale and expanding too through the base of the foot with the inhale. And again, just noting this experience with curiosity, acceptance of what's here. And then I'll invite you to begin to lift the limbs off of the ground and continue to move with the breath. Maybe expanding the limbs out with the inhale and contracting towards the center with the exhale. And as we lift the limbs and begin to move in this way, see if you can maintain an awareness of your center, the abdominal area, and let the movement flow from your navel center. So staying in connection with the core, staying in connection with the breath, and making the movements as small or as large as you'd like. And here, explore if it feels good for you to lengthen the exhale. And if at any point you'd like to relax the limbs back to the floor and center, and then begin again, you're more than welcome to. We'll do this for a few more cycles of breath, slowly waking up the body and focusing, as we will throughout the practice today, of being supported by the ground beneath us and moving from our center with awareness in the limbs, in the movement. So with your next exhale, I'll invite you to pull both knees in towards the chest and release that focus on moving in synchronicity with the breath, and just gently hug both knees towards the armpit on either side. And here, rock side to side, giving the low back a gentle massage. And just checking in with the lower back. Where are we starting from today? The outer hip as you gently roll from side to side. And then settling, hugging both knees again to the armpits, and recognizing for a moment that this is much like child's pose, but on the back. So we can consider this a reverse child's pose. And if ever we're in child's pose in the traditional form, and it isn't feeling good for your knees, I invite you to try taking this instead. It's just noting how this feels for your body. And then extending both legs up and both arms up. We're going to point and flex slowly the feet and the hands. Bringing full awareness into the movement in the ankle joint and the wrist joint. And then slowly, with control, gently move the hands and feet from side to side. So getting some lateral movement in the joint. And then flexing and pointing. And then from there, we're going to slowly lower both heels about a quarter of the way down to the floor and flex the feet. And so you'll feel a good deal of work in the abdominal muscles. This is activating, and the hands are still pushing up towards the ceiling. And I'll invite you to let the hands move back with our arms lengthened about a quarter of the way to the ground as well. So this is an activating hold for digestion, and it's also almost an upside down, downward facing dog. So just noticing that, finding length through the legs, length through the arms. One more breath here. And then settling the hands down alongside the body, settling both feet out to either side of the mat. We'll very gently drop the knees from one side to the other. And again, seeing if you can do the movement with awareness of the ground beneath you, supporting your weight. And with awareness of your center. So maintaining contact with the navel center throughout each movement, seeing if it's possible to feel as if each movement originates from the core. So as we move out from either side, we're very aware of what is happening in the abdomen. Not that the abdomen itself is moving, but that there's this center of gravity that we're maintaining a symmetry with as we move the knees from side to side. And then the next time your knees flow over to the right, I'll invite you to let the body follow and find a fetal position on the right side of the body. And we'll take a breath here, allowing the skull to settle into the support beneath it. And then very gently, with your left hand over the right palm, so one hand over the other, we're going to stretch in the shoulder joint, and just by sliding the left hand forward over the right, and then sliding it back. So again, feeling the hands moving over each other slowly and with awareness, bringing the mind into the movement so that we can feel as we lengthen and the hand passes the one underneath, that stretch through the back body, the back of the shoulder. And then slowly and with control, we'll roll back onto our back and let the palm travel across the front of our body as we flow back through center, and then repeat on the other side. So finding fetal position on the left, and just very gently flowing the right hand over the left and back. And being curious about the movement, about the sensation you become aware of in the back body, the stretch around the right shoulder. And then flowing back through center, we'll take a moment in center to find supported bridge, laying our hands on the mat, and with that awareness of the navel center, drawing the navel up. And here we're in a gentle back bend, and let's just notice how that feels for the spine. And if we're looking for a little bit more of a back bend, we can focus on lifting our hips, lifting the navel center, keeping the chin tucked slightly. And if we're looking for less of a back bend, maybe we want to lower our hips a little lower towards the ground, or even pulse between lowering the hips and lifting them. And then settling the hips back into the support of the ground, and feeling that support of the ground will slowly rise up. So finding the support of your elbows just to lift your back off of the mat, and seeing here if we can maintain the sense of length from our hips to the crown of our head, and feel that activation start in the abdominal muscles. And we'll move into boat with variations. So the first variation I'm going to offer is just with your shins parallel to the mat, feet flexed, but I'm still supporting the majority of my weight with my elbows to reduce the load. So I'm just going to do this for a moment, breathe with it, and then release. and then lift again. And from here, we have that option, finding our balance on the seat while maintaining that length from the hips to the crown of the head. We can add our arms here and even work towards lengthening one leg at a time or both legs. Seeing if dynamic movement or little breaks help us maintain the posture. And then we'll release the feet back to the mat and pull the upper body towards the knees, lengthening through the lumbar spine here. Just holding for a moment and then placing the hands behind us and moving the hips back so that we're in a seated position with the legs extended in front. And here we'll take a moment in staff pose, taking both hands and pressing them into the mat beside the hips, and seeing for a moment if we can notice that contact with the ground. The heels can gently press into the mat. Notice the length of the legs, pressing gently into the mat, the sit bones settling, anchoring. And you can always bend your knees slightly if needed. But now we'll gently press the hands into the mat and feel length coming through from the base of the spine all the way up. And here, as we hold staff pose, we can think of this nice long line of energy shooting from the hips out, the ankles, and another long line from the base of the spine all the way up through the crown of the head. Taking one more breath here. Then releasing fully, bending the knees, and I'll invite you to let your chest flow towards the knees and just settle, hugging your thighs into your chest, tucking your chin and letting your head roll forward. For a moment, finding length through the back of the neck. Breathing into the lower back here. And then moving with mindful attention, we'll slowly come to all fours. So on our knees here, and if you like to have support under your knees, you can use your blanket for that and leave the blanket. So I'm coming to tabletop position here. I like to keep my toes tucked. I'll just do a quick cat-cow, moving slowly, I should say brief. We're not aiming to move quickly, but we won't spend long here. So just take a moment to check in with the spine. Exhaling to round and inhaling to back bend. Then from here, pressing the mat away and lifting the hips for our first downward dog. Pedaling the heels one at a time towards the ground. And in our downward dog today, I'll invite you to move gently from side to side, pedal the heels, explore and find what feels good for you. But I'll invite you as you do this to keep your awareness of that long line from the crown of the head through to the tail, and think of finding length there by pushing your hands into the mat and lifting the upper thighs up and away from those hands and the crown of the head. But seeing in this exploration if we can feel the ground beneath our hands, the ground beneath the feet, and settle into that exploration of yield, that we're moving with the support of this solid foundation beneath us. And can we move gently and fluidly enough that if a strong wind blew our way or somebody knocked up against us, we would still have our balance. So avoiding becoming overly rigid or tight, maintaining fluidity and a kind of buoyancy in the movement supported by that strong foundation beneath. We'll bend both knees and then step the right foot forward, coming between the hands, coming into a runner's lunge here. And I'll invite you, if you have blocks, to place them now underneath each hand. And as you settle into this foundation, using that yield principle, pressing into the mat to lift yourself up. And then exploring what arm movement feels best for you. Is it slowly raising both hands up for a slight back bend? You can choose whether the eyes gaze towards the floor or upward. Or maybe both hands feel better behind the back, opening through the front of the shoulders. And then we'll, on our next exhale, see if moving with that core awareness, we can slowly flow our body forward back to the blocks and step the left leg forward, coming into a forward fold. So gently allowing the upper body to release towards the mat. And still feeling that length from the heels all the way up into the hips. That we can keep the knees bent, but even with the knees bent, think of that long line of energy running up from the heels into the hips. And letting the upper body settle forward. And now, pressing into the mat with the feet, we'll rise up slowly. And then slowly bring the hands up overhead. Gaze can follow to the fingers and feel a nice lift through the ribs. And then flow the hands down through prayer, coming back into our forward fold. And this time stepping the right foot back. Repeating our runner's lunge on the other side. And again, moving with this feeling of buoyancy and foundational support of the ground beneath. And adding the arms that feel best for you. And can we find that sensation of support in both feet such that, again, if someone knocked into you here or the weather picked up, you would feel steady, you would have your balance. One more full breath here. And then with your next exhale, flowing it forward, stepping now that right foot back to the front, and from the forward fold, slowly at your own rhythm, lifting the body back up to standing, and then the arms up overhead. And then settling both hands in mountain. And reconnecting with the breath. And we'll take a moment here as we work with breath awareness to bring our awareness with intention back to the navel center. And just as a gentle inquiry, I'd like you to ask yourself, how has your digestion been feeling? And if there is a need for more of that Agni fire and activation, if things have felt at all sluggish, or there has been a lack of tension and pressure in the abdomen, then I'll invite you to add a hold when you fully exhale. So when you breathe in deeply and exhale fully, to hold the air out of the lungs for 1 or 2 seconds. Because this is activating, if activation isn't what your digestive system needs, you might just continue with flowing, relaxed breath. And as we feel the ground beneath, draw an inhale, opening through the chest, filling the lungs, then exhale completely. Maybe it feels good to tighten through from the pelvic floor up to the upper abdomen. And after fully exhaling, just gently hold the air out of the lungs before allowing it to flow back in. So from here, we're going to step the right leg back to move into side angle pose. So we're stepping quite long, about the length of your leg and a half, and then turning to drop the heel towards the ground and bending that left knee so that it rests over the left ankle. And here again, I'll just invite you to shift your weight from front to back and find that sense of buoyancy and balance and support from the ground beneath you. And only once you've found that feeling that we can flow in this movement, then extending the arms and slowly hinging at the hips to lower the left hand down for side angle posture. Here, extending that right hand up and away so that we have this long line from the right heel up into the right hand and this opening through the side body. But we're feeling here that gentle pressure of the left foot pushing into the support of the ground to find our height, and that support of the right foot, that sense of buoyancy. So I'll invite you with that sense of buoyancy to just gently engage the left foot to push yourself back up. And from there, taking both blocks, we'll turn both feet to face forward and place the blocks within reach. As we come through center here, taking a moment to ground, finding that nice symmetry. Can we feel that navel center, our center of gravity and symmetry on either side? And from there, folding at the hips. And slowly, as our torso comes in a parallel line with the floor, we'll lower the left hand first to the blocks, and keeping our gaze towards the floor, open that right hand out to the side in a gentle twist. Feeling that opening across the shoulder, but our gaze is staying towards the floor. This is another recommended posture for stimulation of the digestive system. We'll take 2 more breaths here. If it feels better for you, you can lower the hand back down and then move back into it, but just respecting your range of motion, respecting the comfort of the shoulder joint. And with your next exhale, bringing the right hand back down, taking a moment to slowly hinge at the hips, rise back up, and angle both feet out slightly to the side and bending one knee to flow over the foot at a time. Just gently release from that posture, release any pressure, build up in the knees, and then point the toes forward again and prepare to repeat on the other side. Hinging at the hips to fold forward, bringing your torso parallel to the mat. Right hand finds the support of the block. Gaze stays flowing down towards the floor, and the left hand now opens. Maybe closes again and reopens. Finding the level of intensity that suits you best today, and remembering you always have full encouragement to come out of a pose early or to stay longer or to modify in any way that suits the unique needs of your body. Take 1 more breath here. And then flowing with an exhale back down through center, can we mindfully hinge at the hips to bring ourselves back upright? And here we're going to take one block and bring it over to the right edge of the mat now. And we'll widen our stance slightly and move our right toes to face the short edge of the right mat. Preparing to repeat that side angle stretch on the other side. So finding that contact with the mat, and again, can we have a feeling of ease and buoyancy as with the support of the ground we bend that right knee now over the right ankle. And for a moment, transfer the weight again between the back foot and the front by gently bending the knee. Seeing, can I find that sense of balance, that sense of connection to my center, a sense of yielding into the support of the ground. And from there, extending the arms and slowly lowering the right hand to the block, bringing the left hand up and over for that extended side angle pose. Connecting with that feeling of length, now from the left foot to the left hand, the opening through the left side body, and that contact with the ground, the support of both feet, finding your balance, your center here, and gently pulsing into the front right foot as you find that buoyancy you're going to need. Now we press into the right foot and come back up. Now turning the toes in again to face forward. I'm going to set my blocks off to the side. And here, take a moment with the toes pointing forward to bring both hands to rest on the sacrum. Just tuning in now to the front of the shoulders, to the chest. Can I broaden across my clavicles? And reconnect with the breath, with the navel center. And as we feel this opening across the front of the chest, just noticing, is this quite a good deal of sensation? Especially in the front of the shoulders. And if it's not, then I invite you to try making both hands fists and pressing them into one another behind the back. And if this also feels like you want more intensity, then maybe you bring your hands into prayer behind the back. While feeling the support of the ground, while feeling that length through the body from the feet, from our foundation, and then releasing the arms. And from here, we're going to do a somatic experiencing exercise. So join me if you're ready to do something a little more creative. We're going to switch our weight from one foot to the other. And when I switch my weight to the left foot, I press into the ground. And again, with that feeling of buoyancy, I'm yielding. I'm going to gently pulse my leg. And again, think of this whole body breath where I can inhale to open the limbs as much as I'd like and exhale to close. Making the movement as small or as large as feels right in this moment. But in essence, doing a whole body breathing for a moment here. Seeing if you can radiate out from the navel center and then contract back to the navel center. One more. Keeping awareness in all limbs. And then settling gently, yielding back into the ground, maybe shifting your weight from either side. And then with the support on the right foot, we're again lifting slowly, using that expansion for the inhale if that feels good for you. Moving at your own rhythm, seeing if you can pulse and feel that buoyancy of movement as your weight yields into the support beneath it. And let that support your movement as you flow your limbs out from the navel center and draw them back in. Do one more here, working with balance, with core stability, and then gently, slowly releasing the weight back into the ground. And from here, we're going to turn the left toes out and the right toes slightly in. And again, I'll invite you to let your hands find each other behind the back. We're preparing to move into an intense chest stretch. So we're seeing, okay, is it both hands over the sacrum? Is it fists behind the back? Or maybe even hands in prayer? What gives me the level of intensity I'm looking for in that stretch and opening across the chest, across the shoulders? And once you've found it, grounding again into both feet, finding that sense of buoyancy and balance, fluidity, and from there, hinging at the left hip and slowly lowering your head down towards the knee. But again, really respecting your range of motion. And you can aim for the area just to the right of your left leg to give space for the stomach. And maybe it feels good here to bend and re-extend the left leg. Or even to keep it bent if that's what your body is requesting of you. Taking 2 more cycles of breath here. Letting that left hip crease draw back and slightly up. Feeling the support through both feet on the ground. And with your next exhale, pressing the left foot into the ground to support your movement back up to vertical. Turning both feet back to center, releasing that for a moment just by swinging the arms from side to side. Then we'll turn the right toes out and left toes in and find our stable ground. Find that sense of yield into the ground. And then place our hands in the position that works best. And with an exhale, let that right hip hinge back. So we slowly fold forward into the intense stretch on the other side. Noticing, can I stay connected to my breath? What helps me feel ease in this posture? Balance. One more full breath here. And with your next exhale, I invite you to press that right foot into the mat as you support your weight in coming up and bringing both feet again to face forward. And from here, we're going to take a step towards the front edge of the mat, turn both feet to face the short edge, and prepare for a full sun salutation to get us to the ground. But for a moment, finding mountain, finding your center, and experimenting again with breathing in fully. And if it feels right for you, as you exhale, letting that gentle compression and contraction of the pelvic floor, lower abdomen, upper abdomen, encourage length through the torso, and hug in towards the center, and hold the breath out for a count of 1 or 2 at the end of the exhale. And then bending the knees, finding that buoyancy, and that relationship with your feet, and the body yielding into the support beneath. From there, with mindful attention in the arms, we'll slowly lift the arms up at either side, pausing halfway to broaden across the chest and open the shoulders. And then slowly, with that opening in the chest, lifting the arms up overhead, and then flowing the hands down through prayer all the way into a forward fold. And then stepping the right foot back, the left foot back, we find ourselves in plank. And so if a full chaturanga vinyasa flow is part of your practice, feel free to do that now. What I'll do is a modified version, lowering the knees down. So I'm supported in half plank. And then from here, very gently with both elbows hugged into the body, lowering myself down all the way to the mat. So I'll take a baby cobra here. Just a mild back bend, but if you'd like to come up into a full cobra or even upward dog by pressing into the mat and finding a more intense back bend, lifting the body, you're welcome to do so. In my baby cobra, I'll take one breath here and then slowly lower the forehead to a pillow formed by my hands on the mat. And for a moment here, release all work. again, finding that feeling of the body being supported from the feet all the way to the crown of the head by the ground beneath. And if it feels inviting to do so here, as you feel the navel center supported, all your inner organs supported by this strong foundation of the floor, with your exhale, you can feel free to support the emptying of the lungs and the movement of energy by tightening through the pelvic floor, lower abdomen, upper abdomen, drawing the ribs in and holding the exhale out for a count of 1 or 2, and then letting the breath flow back in. And as you do so, as you tighten from the pelvic floor to the upper abdomen, see if you can connect to a feeling of energy moving upward, being drawn upward with that movement and stimulated, activated by the hold. One more cycle of breath here. Now placing both hands beneath the shoulders, gently pressing into the mat to bring the body back up through half plank and then back towards the heels. We'll rest our sit bones on the heels, and if it feels good for you, you can walk the hands forward for child's pose, extended child's pose. But again, if this is difficult for the knees and the hips really have trouble settling towards the ankles, you might want to try reverse child's pose on your back. I'll invite you to take a few breaths here, letting breath circulate through the back body, expanding the back ribs, flowing all the way into the lower back. Then gently walking the body back up through center. We'll find a seat here and plant the feet on either edge of the mat. And again, just take a moment to let the knees drop from one side to the other. Moving with awareness, checking in with the inner and outer hip, taking a moment to release tension in those areas. Then preparing for Shavasana, I'll invite you to take one last stretch of any kind that would feel good for your body right now. So for me, due to old injuries, I gather tension in my neck and in parts of my spine. So I'm going to take a moment just to stretch my neck, lowering my ear to one shoulder with the chin tucked. But if you know you have an area of your body that tends to need a little bit of extra care, I'll invite you to find a stretch that works for that area now. Just anywhere where you feel you could use a release from that practice. And then we'll all meet in Shavasana. So finding anything warm and cozy you might like on your body. I'm going to lay a blanket to support my skull and support the neck into a neutral position. Laying back, slowly moving with that same mindful awareness of the body in motion. And as we settle back for Shavasana, allowing your limbs to move from that awareness of center out to either side, finding symmetry on either side of the body in whatever way feels best for you. Maybe with the palms open to the ceiling, the back of the feet dropping out to either side. And as we settle in for stillness, preparing to integrate the movement and the practice we just went through, I'll invite you again to scan from the skull, the crown of the head, all the way through to the toes. Just bringing curiosity and a kind awareness to any sensations in the body now. And as you move through, giving each area of the body permission to release any work, to settle into the support of the ground beneath, to yield and feel that the body is fundamentally supported. And if, as you scan through, there is an area that's holding tension, maybe the jaw, the throat, the shoulders, the low back, the hips, or even in the abdominal center, these places we tend to store and accumulate tension and fatigue. Seeing if you can use that nourishing breath as a flow of support and fresh energy into those areas of the body. Imagining any areas of tension expanding on the inhale as that wave of breath moves through and surrounds the area. And then with an exhale, that invitation to release into the support of the ground. We'll be holding space now for 2 minutes of silence. So as we prepare to come out of our Shavasana today, we'll invite you to begin inviting movement into the body by gently moving the hands and feet first, and taking a moment here just to savor this non-doing, this release into the support of the ground. Just remember, in working with yoga for digestion, one of the most evident benefits or well-researched benefits of yoga for digestion is just the relief from stress, which can impact our digestive system in so many unique ways for different individuals. But just noting that what you've done for yourself now is giving yourself a chance to let that stress release into the mat, settle into the ground beneath you, letting the breath and this mindful movement ease your central nervous system that's been happening. This is a gift you've given yourself. So just taking a moment to savor that awareness, feel gratitude for having taken the time, given yourself the time to practice. If you'd like to stay in Shavasana, you're more than welcome. For those who are ready, can begin by gently rolling over into a fetal position. And I'll encourage you to take a breath there before, with an exhale, gently pressing the body up to a seated position. We'll close with 3 repetitions of the mantra Om. Preparing to begin, breathing in deeply. That's our practice for today. Thank you so much for joining me.